Hey guys, it's Justin again with another episode of Gunpla for Cheap Bastards. So, the whole idea of this project was to explain to people who are new to the hobby that might think that this hobby is incredibly expensive, roughly what you can get and stay within a budget. You can kind of flex that budget how you want, but I think the idea is to demonstrate that you can get started in this hobby even if you don't want to paint. You don't need to paint. You can get all your supplies to start building on a budget, and then you can work that budget next month, and you can add more stuff, and you can keep adding things, and then you can work it next month and add more things until eventually you've got the supplies that you're happy with. But you can start on a budget and not spend a lot. And even within that budget, you can paint and you can get decent results. So this is what this is for those of you who are new, and for those of you who are still around and haven't taken that jump into painting, who are interested in it and want to, who are concerned about cost. In the first video, I discussed the basics. I discussed the absolute most necessary things you're going to need to perform in this hobby. Those things were a pair of cutters, sandpaper, and a model kit. Now we're going to start with the cutters. The cutters I recommended, these are this isn't exactly a Walmart brand cutter like I said, but it looks like the Walmart brand cutter. So the Walmart cutter that looks like this is about, I want to say, $3. I'm not going to recommend the $3 one. They have a step up. This is the Walmart brand $5 cutter. It's much, much nicer, it's flatter, and it works really well. I still use these today. Now these are more expensive, so if you're not planning on painting and you want to stay and follow this video in budget and you're only going to go to the second part and you're going to use the stickers and stuff like that, these are invaluable. These are like the nicest cutters I've ever had. I think they cost me $25. They're quite pricey. I got them on Amazon, so I think that's why they were so expensive. But they are really nice cutters. Definitely the nicest cutters I've ever used. But these are really nice as well. They're not bad, especially considering they only cost $5 at Walmart. You can get them like locally. So I think even Target has like a crafts department. So if you have a Target near you and not a Walmart, there's always alternatives. Just look around and see what's available. The cutters will cost you from $3 to $5. I'm going to recommend the $5 ones if you go the Walmart route, just because the bigger ones from Walmart don't cut as clean. Excuse me. And I know we're sanding and I know we're cleaning, but it puts a lot of stress on your plastic. And if you cut too close, there's a chance you'll cut into the plastic, and they're also kind of bulky, so it's hard to cut gates where they're like really close to the part. So you're just going to save yourself a lot of trouble if you get the flat ones. They're a lot nicer. They're roomier. They're more comfortable. They're really nice. The next thing I discussed was sandpaper, and I don't remember what I said sandpaper cost, but I went and looked it up again just to make sure. Sandpaper is currently at about $7 on Amazon. It's $7 with Prime, so you can get 10 sheets of any grit. I think the only one that costs more is like the 1200 grit or the 1500 grit, just because it's more like fine, and I guess that means it's hard to make. But I think those are like $10 for a 10-pack, so it's still not bad. But I'm going to recommend you get about a 600 or 800 grit. That's $7. So that brings our budget to $12. We're at $12 right this moment. And our kit. I went with the H3 Orbital. You can see the retail value of a kit right here on a Bandai kit. This will show it's 1,800 yen. The retail price is 800 yen. If you buy a store in the United States, you're probably going to end up spending a little more, and that puts the budget at $32. So for $32, you can snap build a kit, and it'll look, as fine as you want it to look. Now, someone in the comments of the second video made a comment about the price of Tamiya extra thin cement, and I thought about it, and I looked it up, and I even went back and checked my order history. Apparently I didn't pay $15 for that cement, so I got that wrong, and I apologize. The Tamiya extra thin cement is actually $4.40 on the on the eBay page, and it's $260 for shipping. So about $7 altogether. So factor that into 32, we're looking at $39, and you can seam remove your kit that you just bought. Now, what about the rest of that budget? We're at just about $40. That gives us $60 to play with to paint and detail and stuff. So when it comes to primer, there's a lot of options out there. I've experimented a little bit with hand brushing primers. My first couple of kits, this is the exact bottle I used. I lost it for a while, and you can see all the stuff at the bottom, so I don't think I can mix this back up. But this is acrylic primer. You can hand brush this. You can, if you have an airbrush, you can spray it through the airbrush. You can do a lot with this. I'm not going to recommend it. This is a little better, I think. A little better. It's not a lot better. It has a longer cure time. You have to let this sit for a really long time before it can cure. But other than that, it's really nice. It's really durable, and it's generally good primer. But it's really expensive, so I'm not going to recommend this either. I picked this up at Scale Hobbyist. I think it was like $8. So I mean, it's an option. What I'm going to recommend, and most people are not going to recommend this. I'm just going to recommend the Krylon Max Primer. Thin coats, and this bottle should last you through 2 high grades maybe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be hand painting, and I just checked all the prices of these paints, and they're roughly about the same. I have a custom color scheme, so I guess I'll show you that before this. This was done by my friend Steven. So here is the colors that the age 3 is going to be painted in. It's got like a dark green, a light green, some really dark blue kind of grays, with some orange and yellow accents. My light green is going to be Vallejo Panzer Aces 329. This is a highlight Russian something tracker. So there's that. The dark green is going to be Vallejo Splinter Strips. This is a 348. It's a nice dark green. For our frame, I think if I don't end up mixing a gray, I'm going to be using the Formula P3 Pig Iron. For my dark blues, I'm going to be using Great Coat Gray from P3, and this is a very like blue-gray kind of color. It's kind of in the middle. And for my orange, I'm going to be using P3's Cador Red Highlight. It's a very, very orangey color. Citadel's Abaddon Black. That's going to be like the little black accents on the shoulders and the chest and things like that. There's not very many of those. For my yellow, I'm going to be using Citadel's Uriel Yellow. And then for panel lines and washes and stuff like that, I'm going to go ahead and use Citadel's Nuln Oil. I'm going to thin that down a little bit, and hopefully it'll run through my panel lines. I've got all my paints. How much does all this cost? Vallejo paints, Citadel paints, and P3 paints all cost roughly around, depending on where you get them, it's going to be about $2.50 to $3 a bottle. And a lot of people are going to be like, Justin, that's a really small bottle of paint for $3. You thin this out, you're only going to need a couple of drops of paint per like few pieces. At the very least, I'm going to recommend you pick up a black, a white, 1 or 2 grays, and then all the primary colors. That way you can kind of mix and match how you want if you're comfortable doing that. Alternatively, if you can't get your hands on acrylics, I know sometimes acrylics can be hard to find. I had to search all over. We just got a Hobby Lobby like last year, and they sell the Panzer Aces. But most of my hobby stores, well, the hobby store is about an hour from me because I don't have a hobby store near me. They sell testers. These are a little pricey. I think they're like $3 to $4. They're enamel, which is really nice. Enamels are really good paints, but they take a really long time to dry. Another one is Model Master. It's basically the same thing. They're still testers to my knowledge. They're just a nicer offset of testers. So I'm going to set some stuff up real quick, and then we will figure out how we're going to skewer these pieces up, and then we are going to go and paint. So I'll be back. Okay, so after I've factored in all the paint that I'm going to be using, you might use more, you might use less, you might not even paint. I have 6 colors here. That fact, using the $3, I pushed it to $3 because you're going to end up paying whatever for shipping if you can't buy them locally anyway. That brought, my paints were $24 for everything. So, what comes next? You have to find a way to hold your parts while you're painting them, and this is one of the hardest parts of painting, especially when you're using a brush. So the first thing I'm going to do is recommend you separate your colors by what they're going to be when you're done. If you're going to paint the colors that are included in the kit, you can just take all the blue pieces and separate them and put them on their own things and paint them. I'm going to recommend you paint one color at a time. Paint that color, and then when you're done painting that color, then move on to the next one. It takes longer, but until you are comfortable with working with all these pieces that are different colors, especially if you're doing a custom color scheme, I'm not going to recommend too much jumping around, just because it's really easy to get confused. It's really easy for one piece to migrate to another pile, and then you're like, what happened? Why is this piece not this color? So all these parts here have been seam removed. They've all been prepped. And like for this one, for example, it's still got the gray piece in it. I'm just going to go ahead and, since we're hand brushing, this is really not even a trouble spot, so it'll be fine. So our budget with the paint is up to $63. Using the $100 budget model, we still have almost $40 to work with. $40, and we can paint. And the only things we need to buy are brushes and clips. You can buy a pack of 100 bamboo skewers at most like grocery stores and stuff like that, because this styrofoam block was $2 at Walmart. $2. So this is what I'm going to put my pieces in. That's going to put my budget at 65. I'm going to use roughly 2 packs of alligator clips. They come in like an 8-pack, so 16 is more than fine. You can double clip some pieces. You can actually assemble some pieces, like I did with the chest here. You just assemble it, and then even though there's stuff that goes inside here, you can just take it apart, put it back together around the assembly. So you can cut down a lot of your runner uses by putting pieces partially together if you don't seam remove them. So I'm going to use about 16 alligator clips. I'm going to use this block, and I'm going to use some skewers and alligator clips, whatever. The alligator clips will cost you about $3 per pack. They come in about packs of 8. The skewers probably cost about $2 for a pack of 100, so you only need one of those. I've only bought one of those ever, and that's gotten me along for 3 years, almost 4. So you can very, very easily stretch the lifespan of those, and the clips will last you forever. So I recommend picking those up. $74, $75, you've still got $25 to play with. Alligator clips. They are literally just bamboo skewers with a clip on the end. These have been used maybe twice. So I'm going to make a cut here, and then we're going to go outside. Okay, welcome to outside. This is my backyard. Okay, we've got all of our pieces that are going to be painted green. We've got our paint. We're going to shake it up a whole bunch. So what you want to do is you want to maintain a distance away from your pieces. You don't want to spray directly on the piece. You want to be back a little bit. And you just want to lay on thin
Thin layers of paint. This is kind of thick. Another thing you want to take into consideration is the wind, so I noticed the wind is blowing that way, so we're going to switch to this way. That's a lot better. Alright, so after a couple of light layers, it's going to look something like that. Again, you want to lay on thin layers of paint, because otherwise you're going to build up a lot of paint and it's going to get stuck in the panel lines, and you're not going to be able to do anything with this kit. Again, very slowly, very carefully. And there we go. So that's all primed up, looks good. V-fin. Another thing you can do with these is you can twist this little cap here and change the angle that it sprays at. To help you get better coverage depending on how much trouble you're having. There we go. So V-fin.
Okay, so after everything that we've factored in up to this point, our budget sits at about $75. And we still have $25 we can spend on everything. We're probably not going to spend the entire budget, to be honest. I'd probably throw a bunch more things in here that you don't need, and the budget would still be fine. But for, I'd say, less than $5, you can get a set of brushes. These are what I'm going to be using today. This isn't the whole set. That's where that one. This is just part of the set that is included. You get 10 brushes in here for, I want to say, probably about $3. And for like another $3 to $4 you can get 3 palettes. I'm going to use the smallest palette that I have just because I don't need a whole bunch of colors. Now, depending on the method that you decide to paint this on, or using, you might change how many paints you buy. You might change a number of things. So I'm just going to be base coating all this. I'm not going to be doing any kind of fancy hand brushing techniques. I don't really know very many hand brushing techniques. The first colors I'm going to be painting are going to be my dark greens. I think these are going to be the only ones I paint on camera just because I don't want this video to be super long. But you can see the primer's dried. It's only been about an hour. And it dried, it's smooth, it looks good, it looks fine. It hasn't washed out any detail. There's not any dust or anything like that. It looks fine. Probably not my ideal primer. I don't really like using spray primer, but it's actually it's not too bad. So the first color we're going to use is going to be the Panzer Ace's Splinter Strips. We're just going to go ahead and put 1, maybe 2, 3, 4 little drops of, like 3 or 4 drops in there. And we're going to take some water. It's just regular water. I believe this is actually Dasani water I just had laying around. And we're just going to put a bunch of that in the other side. And you don't want to add a lot. You can just put a couple drops. I'm not factoring in the pipette. We're not doing that. So we're going to put just as many drops in this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we mix it up. I don't like to mix paints with my paintbrush because I feel that it causes the paint to run up into the reservoir of the brush, and it does more damage than good. So there's that all mixed up with the water. It's all thinned out. You can see you drag it up, it flows down, but it stays on the side of this cup, and it leaves a lot of the pigment up there. So that's about the thickness you want. Depending on the paint, you don't stick to a 1-to-1 ratio, but I always stick to a 1-to-1. and then I modify it as I go. Now, because we're just base coating this, we're going to use a pretty decent sized brush. And each different brush has a different purpose. The size of it does come into play. This is a size 5. It's a very large brush. It's got a nice tip to it, so you can do like detail work and stuff with it, but I wouldn't try and paint something ridiculously small like mobile suit eyes with this. And again, you can get a large assortment of brushes for very cheap. So I'm going to just go ahead and dip the tip of my brush into this. I'm not going to get more than halfway up the brush with my paints. And I'm quite literally just going to start brushing this very carefully. And I'm going to be very mindful of the direction in which I'm painting, because you don't want to keep going in different directions if you can help it. And you're going to build up 3, 4, maybe even 5 coats. So there's our first coat on that. It's a little uneven looking, but once it dries it'll look a little better. And the reason we're using a larger brush is because when you use a smaller brush you have to make more strokes, and when you make more strokes there's more chance that the paint is going to sit unevenly and it's not going to look good. Alright, so there's the first piece, just base coated. I left the, if you can help it, detail pieces that are going to be different colors, you might want to leave blank. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you're comfortable painting in that small area, that's fine. If not, that's also fine. Just, try and work where you're comfortable. So we'll come back and we'll paint one more layer on these and see how they look. We'll look at them once they've dried so you guys can see what they look like in between layers, and you know where. Actually, that is pretty much dry, so we can just keep going. So there's one layer. It's very green, but it's also a little brown, I guess, because of the primer. So you can take your toothpick and mix this up a little more and make sure that the paint is staying mixed up, because sometimes the pigment will settle towards the bottom, and if you think the paint's getting thick you can still do the drag test and make sure that it's flowing the way it's supposed to. This still looks fine, so we're just going to go ahead and keep painting. There we go. So the second layer, you can see the color starting to come through a little more. It looks a lot more even. It looks a lot nicer. I still think we're going to need one more after this. So once this dries up, then we'll come back and we'll hit this one last time, and you can see what it looks like all painted up. So I will be back. Okay, so here's what my pieces look like after all the 3 layers. It's a really nice green. It's a really even green. It came out a lot better than I thought that it would. It's just one of those things, the more you keep at it, the more, thin layers you build up, the better it's going to look. And again, you can thin this out more if you'd rather work with thinner paints. And you can, go for that desired effect. So before we end this video, I'm going to go ahead and we'll cover like detailing. So I'm going to paint that little inner piece there, and I might do that one. I don't remember what color that's supposed to be. But this is pretty much where it's supposed to be. I'll probably paint the blacks on there. And we can go over washing. And that looks fine as well. So I guess we'll do washes first on these pieces, just because they're they're pretty much done. The only thing I can do on this is paint like the black on the inside of there. That's easy enough. And this is just in need of a wash. So these are green. You should use a brown wash, but because black is pretty universal, actually no, I'm going to use the brown because I'm doing green. You can use black, you can use whatever. These are Citadel washes. They are probably my favorite washes. These are already incredibly thin on their own. We're going to use a smaller brush for these. So let's go ahead and get this one. This is a 10-0. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my large brush to move some of this wash into my palette. Don't need a lot. I mean, it looks like I'm taking a lot, but I'm really not putting a lot in. Just because I guess I don't know if it has to do with the brush or not. But there we go. That's more than fine, more than enough. And we're going to need a little bit of water. Not very much. I'm only going to put like maybe a drop of water in this to thin it out just a tiny little bit. Because it's already thinned down on its own. Like, you know how it comes in the bottle or whatever. And I'm going to use the same toothpick. I'm just going to use the other side. I'm going to stir that up a little bit just to make sure that it is the way it should be. I can't really see if I can get that on camera so you can see it. It's very runny, and it doesn't really leave a whole lot behind when you lay it down. So we're going to take this brown wash, and we're just going to stick it inside of our panel lines. And it's okay if you go out a little bit. It's not that big of a deal. It'll be super easy to clean up. But you just want to make sure that they're kind of stained brown on the panel lines themselves. You don't want to brush. I mean, you can brush the whole thing, but it's going to dry kind of uneven, and it'll look more weathered than it is. So there we go. Just trace these panel lines. And if you do it correctly, you can see that it's filled the panel lines a little bit on the outside. We'll wait till it dries to see what we're going to do with it. It might be fine, it might not. Put some wash inside of these. And again, the brown's going to help the greens pop a little bit. It'll help complement them. And it will make sure that they look the way that they're supposed to look. So that's pretty much all the details on that. We'll save the last one for after I paint
or until I'm done painting the inside details. But you can see the browns on the inside of the panel lines, and that's really the biggest thing that I'm going for, is to make sure that my panel lines are filled and they look fine. I'm quite pleased with that, actually. So once that dries, we'll see what it looks like and how it works, and we might just need to touch it up with a really thin down green. That'll help it you know, look neat like it's supposed to. So there's that. Okay guys, so I have gone ahead, I've painted actually the second shade of green, which is more of a really light kind of blue-green kind of color. It's a little bit more green than it is blue, but it looks kind of like a gray, I guess. This top piece here is going to be painted my next color, which is going to be the Great Coat Gray. It's a very blue gray. I'm really excited to try that out. I've got a few spots to touch up as far as washes are concerned, and I have to figure out how I want to panel line the blue-green pieces and where I want to panel line and things like that. I'm trying to be a little more selective and make certain details pop out. But obviously, like, the larger channels will be panel lined and things like that. But like, I don't think I'm going to do too much with this little small one here on the side. Like, I think I'm just going to leave that alone. But here's how that dried out. You can see it came out really good. You can't tell that I put that little half coat on there and did all that. Came out really good. The panel lining came out really good. So I'm pleased with that. Probably might have made out better using lining markers, but this did just fine. The only other issue I've run into is painting yellow. I just had to keep layering it up, and layering it up, and it got a little cruddy. Not the worst, but definitely could have been better. Let's see. You can see here I gotta clean this wash up still. There's a lot of crud in those ones over there, but the back side isn't too bad. Just like one or two little spots. And then I can start laying down some more of those colors. So what's left? All of these pieces, and these are all going to be sprayed tomorrow when I get up. Let all that dry and all that nonsense. And I will paint all of these the dark gray that you saw a little while ago. I just want to go back through all these and make sure that they're all cleaned up properly. Some of them have a couple of little nub marks on them and things like that. I'm not worried about major nub marks, but smaller ones I'd like to get out of the way, or things that stick out more, I mean. But for the most part, everything looks pretty good. I'm really happy so far with all this. I'm trying to create a little bit of color separation here. I'm kind of winging the back a little bit because I didn't have a back shot to go by, so I just kind of did it up how I wanted to. Another thing I did, which you may or may not be able to tell, is I painted that thin black line in between those two. You'll see it more on the shoulders when I get to that. You'll see where that little insert is. There's a black part. It used to be a sticker. I'm going to go ahead and paint that on this. I did that on this as well. But like I said, I am incredibly pleased with where I'm at right now. I finally get to do the camera. I can put the head together. I do have the head itself mostly done. I just have to put that V-fin on, but the head is done. It's a little cruddy. I need to put some thickened paint in there, and because some of the primer cracked a little bit. So I'm just going to fix that. It shouldn't be too difficult to fix. But this is... oh god. The last piece for the head that needs to be done, and then I can put that together. I'm really excited to do that because then I can see what I'm going to be looking at when all this is done.
So I'm going to cut this here. We'll come back and we will look at, you know, some of the final sub-assemblies, and maybe I'll do a little more. We'll see. I've got some plans. So we will be back. Hey guys, you just saw the final video, or the final photos, I guess, for the H3 orbital. Here's what it looks like sitting on my desk right now. It's just kind of hanging out, doing its own thing. I didn't move it around a whole lot. It was kind of crappy out. I took a bunch of pictures, and I couldn't get too many that I liked, that I was happy with. I took all the photos with my phone. I didn't use my camera because I wanted to stay true to the budget. And I wanted to capture it the cheapest way I possibly could, so I downloaded a free app on my phone called Open Camera. I'm going to highly recommend you guys check that out. It's really nice. So what's left? Well, my budget was at, I believe, $83, $84, something like that. And I still had a little bit left over, so I could do whatever. I could have bought a backdrop for, I use backdrop paper for my normal shoots, and you can get a big 28 by like 25 sheet of that for $1 at Walmart. But, you know, whatever works best for you, do that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give this kit away maybe in about a week. So anybody who leaves a comment down below will be entered to win the kit. I'm going to only send it out within the United States, so I'm sorry anybody who's overseas. I just want to, I don't have a whole lot of money to ship things out right now. So I'm going to keep it in the United States. Anybody who wants the kit or who enjoyed the series, if you want to comment and leave something below that you thought was cool or something that you thought could have been done better, and I will do a random drawing and one of you will win the kit. The other things is from my Hangouts. I said on my Facebook page that I'd be giving away stuff. I have the Bandai Summer Parts sets from this last parts campaign. I have sets A, B, and C. I'm going to give 3 of those away to another random person from that video. And for the delay, I will also include those people on this giveaway as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and thank you guys for watching. Any feedback would be great. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. See ya.